Speaking of defense, and I caught shit for something I said about the Celtics in the last podcast, but not from JT Alexander that I know of. He asked, the Celtics' defense has been the defensive version of thermonuclear as fuck, thermonuclear AF. Shout out JT for using it the last couple of months. Does an improving offense mean this team is ready to come out of the East, or is this question completely reactionary?
I don't think it's reactionary. To me, it still doesn't feel like there's a clear-cut, overwhelming favorite to come out of the East. And I would include Boston in maybe not the 1A tier of contenders, but in the 1B tier, because that defense has been super legit all year. And we are now seeing what a detonation from Jayson Tatum can do to the offense. Things are clicking there. It's starting to make more sense. The sets are smoother. The shots are falling, which was one of the issues early in the season, is that the open jumpers were not finding the bottom of the net. Now that they are, even if it's just a progression to the mean, this is a really dangerous team. So I think if you're ranking the pecking order within the East, you're still looking at Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Miami as those 1A teams. But Chicago, Boston, Toronto, Cleveland, Brooklyn, like those are the teams where I don't know that it would be super shocking if they made it out. And I'd probably have Boston at the top of that pack because I don't trust Brooklyn's health and availability. To me, Boston is closer to moving up into that 1A tier than falling out of 1B.
I think you could make a case for probably like 4 teams to come out of the East, and the Celtics are one of them. The Brooklyn Nets are not. Yeah. I'm out on the Nets. It's just there's too many what ifs described to them. I am concerned. I know the offense has been better. I would be curious to see whether they do have just enough off-ball shooting, functional shooting, aside from Jayson Tatum, aside from Jaylen Brown, to get by in certain postseason matchups. But they are, wow, from where they were just a month or two ago, their defense has been, and the Derrick White pickup just now in retrospect makes so much sense.
So much more sense.
They can defend. And they have, I don't know that you look at them. I know some people tried to make like the Robert Williams Defensive Player of the Year case. I don't know that I'm there yet. I feel like his role on defense, they are reliant on him, but it does feel more streamlined. They have like the deepest, my point is, I don't know that they have someone that you would consider one of the 5 best defenders in the league, but they have so many, not even just above average, but very impactful defenders who work well within like these different team schemes that we saw, where there was a lot of switching earlier on in the year. I know they didn't work out great, but it was still, they were doing okay. And now we've seen, Zach Lowe and Brian Scalabrine talked about how they've had like Robert Williams helping away from these corners, but we've also seen, I mean, when you were looking at the way they were playing against the Nets, like they have Robert Williams is like coming out super far and calling off guys who want to get back because he wants to defend Seth Curry at points. They are so versatile on defense, and they can win ugly, but they can also win with haymakers. I wouldn't trust the latter as much as their defense. Like their offense, I said again, is probably just the shooting specifically, just in the half court. Do they have enough lights out shooting? That's my biggest concern with them. But Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly, those are my 4 teams that I think are most likely to come out of the East right now. Not necessarily.
I think my biggest concern about Boston, not necessarily in one specific playoff series, but over the course of the run that it takes, the 16 wins that are necessary to win a title, is what happens if Tatum does go cold. Because I don't know that they have the secondary creation, the secondary playmaking to buffer against that. And he's been pretty impervious to increased defensive attention. Like the amount of tough buckets that he's generating against, double teams coming from the weak side is just out of this world in recent weeks. But that can wear you down. And if it does, if they're in the Eastern Conference Finals and he goes cold, where are the points coming from? I think that's my biggest concern about this team still.
Which I think is fair. But yeah, I don't think that's reactionary at all. I think actually this sample has sustained long enough to where Boston, that might be the best way to frame it. Right now, who's more likely to come out of these, Boston or Brooklyn? I would say Boston. It's not even
absolutely really. Boston. I think if we're actually ranking, I would say Philly is number 1, Milwaukee's number 2, Miami's number 3, Boston's number 4.
You have who? I'm sorry, can you run that through again? Boston's 4, Miami.
Philly, Milwaukee, Miami, then Boston.
Do you have Philly above Milwaukee?
Yes.
I think I have Milwaukee above Philly. Otherwise, I might have the same order.
I'm a little worried about the Milwaukee depth.
I'm very worried about the Milwaukee depth, but I think I'm just like defaulting to the source that I trust at this point, which is all Giannis everything.
I totally get that.